During our class, I discovered that Guatemala is a beautiful country. It has sweeping valleys, high-rising mountains, and breathtaking forests. However, after visiting our wide variety of destinations, I also realized that it is plagued by waste that could be disposed of more efficiently. While I'll discuss different places in Guatemala, I will focus more on rural Guatemala because through reasons that I will discuss later, that is where the problem is worse. I will start with who causes or contributes to the problem. In the picture, you see a wide range of people. There are kids, adults, indigenous people, Latinos, rich, poor, men, and women. All of these groups of people contribute to the problem of trash in Guatemala. While in the poor indigenous areas of Cahuites, I saw many adults throw or burn their waste on the street or throw it into the river, and when they do this, it reinforces the idea in the children's heads that it is a decent method of solid waste disposal. So then the children start to dispose of waste in the same way, and they become part of the problem. On different occasions, I observed children watching or helping trash be burned, and when you walk through the streets in the more urban areas, you can see, although to a lesser degree, what appears to be upper-class Ladino people throwing trash to the ground as well. And it's not only people that contribute to the problem, but businesses. From speaking with natives and my professors, I learned that companies can be employed to pick up trash, but that sometimes they only dispose of it by dumping it out of sight in a lesser well-known or faraway area. These observations help prove to me that the problem isn't restricted to one group of people or one area, but rather the whole country and the country's culture surrounding waste. And although there is no one group responsible, my observations and time spent in Guatemala have led me to believe that demographically, there are three groups who contribute to the problem more than their counterparts. Firstly, when I did see non-biodegradable trash being burned or dumped, it was normally by men. One explanation is that taking out the trash may be an activity that falls under the male role within society, and so the trash that I saw men disposing of was actually them taking out their family's trash. A second explanation could be that the women simply aren't seen outside as much as the men and therefore are not seen disposing of trash as much. The second group which contributed more than their counterparts were younger people versus older people. In my journal, I explored the loss of Mayan culture that's steadily occurring in Guatemala, and I think that this is the cause of the younger people dumping trash and the elderly people not. The book In Focus Guatemala also discusses how the younger generation is losing the culture of their ancestors, and part of the culture was to be respectful to the land and Mother Earth. So because the older people still hold these values, they do not pollute the land, but the younger people, from children to middle age, no longer hold these values as tightly. The third group is the indigenous, who seem to improperly dispose of waste more than the Latinos, and the reason for that is mainly a lack of other options of solid waste disposal. Solid waste in Guatemala is disposed of in a number of ways. The Pan American Health Organization states that in urban areas, 47% of the population have access to solid waste collection, while in rural areas, only 4% have access to the same services. The remaining people without trash collection are left with the options of burning, burying, or dumping their trash. This picture is of the basurero in Guatemala City, which handles all of the trash collected by waste management companies. Opposite the picture of the basurero is a picture of the rural area Cahuites. This is the typical way that solid waste is disposed of in many rural areas. Each of the different methods of solid waste disposal has different negative and positive side effects for different groups of people. The prevalence of trash collection in urban areas and the lack of it in others is primarily caused by Guatemala's political agenda. Tourists, diplomats, and businessmen usually go to the urban areas of Guatemala if they have reason to go at all. And according to In Focus Guatemala, one of the country's main political goals is to rise from being a third world country and become a global citizen. In order to aid in the completion of that goal, they have cleaned the cities by creating the dump and city trash pickup program. However, they have left the rest of the people to dispose of their waste themselves. The differences caused by the concentrated trash collection can be seen above in the contrast between the park area in Guatemala City versus the farm area at the Women's Co-op in Santiago, Zamora. The city area has no trash in sight, but the people of Santiago, Zamora have obviously been left to throw their trash throughout the community. This picture represents the two groups of people that this affects the most, the poor indigenous and the rich Latinos of the city. The system of concentrated waste collection that has been set up means that because very poor city people can only afford to live around the dump, rich people live in urban areas, and poor people live in rural areas without much trash collection, that the rich are really the only people who have access to this service, and usually the rich are the Ladino and the poor are the indigenous. The rest of the people are forced to live near the waste or find a method to dispose of it themselves. The result is that the concentrated waste collection raises Ladino standards of living while lowering those of the indigenous. But when looking at the problem through the eyes of a poor Guatemalan, one can see that there are positives to the waste. This picture was taken on the way up to Cowie's, and the people were scavenging through the trash. According to research done at UNC, this also occurs in the Guatemala City dump, where people scavenge the dump for resources as well as use it for shelter. The poorest people are able to live around the dump for free because nobody who can afford not to wants to live near a dump. On top of the free space that the dump provides to the people, their scavenging efforts provide the people with enough resources to live on. People can and do salvage food scraps, furniture, scrap to build houses, and other goods suitable for sale from the waste. So the dump helps provide the poorest people with the things that they need to survive. However, with the positives come the negatives. Most important are the negative health effects associated with improper solid waste disposal. The burning of trash can cause severe respiratory problems for the people burning their waste, and as the book Healthcare in Maya Guatemala showed us, they already have limited access and involvement with governmental healthcare. These two factors coupled together exacerbate the problems of poor health. This picture shows an indigenous woman carelessly tossing a plastic bag into the already filthy Zunil River. According to the photographer, this famed river is used to wash clothes and irrigate farms. As waste like that bag gets dumped into the water, it leaches chemicals into the water, and according to the Pan American Health Organization, that water probably won't get treated. Only 19 of the 332 municipalities in Guatemala have active wastewater treatment. The other 113 municipalities dispose of their wastewater without treatment. This then worsens the problem of their non-potable water and again adversely affects health. Another health problem caused by the waste is the spread of disease. Waste is covered in bacteria and contains items such as improperly disposed of needles and medical materials that can also spread viruses and diseases. All of these are factors that contribute in large to the poor health problems caused by improper waste disposal. And looking at the trash from the perspective of some of the native people again reveals that the trash that we see as tourists may not always be trash. As I said before, waste can be turned into a resource. For instance, in the picture shown, the plastic bottles floating on Lake Atitlan may look like poorly disposed of plastic from far away, but in all actuality they are crab buoys. When we saw solid waste thrown on top of tin roofs, what we were seeing was the weights being used to keep the roofs down on the houses. In the city, shards of glass bottles lining the top of walls may appear to be trash at first, but they function as a barbed wire to keep intruders from climbing over the wall. Or as Lee revealed to me, farmers will throw trash on the ground around their crops in order to attract the bugs to the trash and protect their crop. These kinds of innovative ideas show hope for the future, but there are many different possible solutions to the problem of solid waste disposal. One path is for the government to step in. They could create dumping laws, more dumps, spread solid waste collection programs, or start solid waste disposal education programs. However, with the exception of creating laws, all of these solutions will cost a considerable amount of money, and this means raising taxes. I learned from Yannette that only a small percentage of upper-class people actually pay substantial taxes in Guatemala, and the upper class is dominated by the Latinos. Additionally, in my journal, I wrote about how Latinos hold more power and influence within the government. This, coupled with the fact that they stand to gain no major benefit from helping poor people get trash collection, means that the path of governmental involvement is less likely to be approved by the government itself. The most cost-effective and economical solution for the people would be to continue to find innovative uses for the trash as they have been doing. Similar to the examples I just explored, the picture shown is an example of one of these ideas that could solve the problem for Guatemala. These people are using an alternative building material made out of trash to build a house. These eco-blocks, that they've been named, are composed of plastic bottles filled with trash and packed between chicken wire. They have already been used to build houses, schools, and stores in Guatemala. The effects of the different routes of action would vary. Dumping laws would only bring punishment upon the poorer people, as they comprise the majority of people who dump trash. Governmental actions have the potential to be very beneficial to solving the problem, but as I said before, they would raise taxes and it is likely that they would not be approved. So the changes in bettering of solid waste disposal must come from within the communities themselves. The picture shows a sign that says, "Welcome to Cowie's. Please don't dump trash." This is the beginnings of the kinds of actions that are necessary to make a change. Perhaps the people could create a community dump with their own town dumping laws, and they could continue to use the trash in innovative ways which would diminish solid waste while helping poorer families cut expenses on the items that they would have to buy to provide the same functions. So if the people take initiative and get involved, the poor areas without trash collection will be well on their way to being restored to their natural beauty.